Don't cry, you're coming with me. Clara froze. Rain struck her face as hard as small stones. Her dress was torn at the bottom, her hands were muddy, and one shoe was missing. She stood in the middle of the mountain road, shaking under the dark sky. Behind her, 3 riders came through the rain. "Grab her," one man shouted. Clara looked around wildly. There was nowhere to run. Then a horse stepped out of the storm. A tall cowboy sat on its back. His brown coat was soaked, his black hat was pulled low, and a revolver rested at his side. He stopped beside Clara and looked at the men. Nobody spoke. The cowboy reached down. Instead of pulling out his gun, he held out his hand. "Come on." Clara stared at him. The riders began to laugh. "You planning to save her, mountain man?" one of them called. The cowboy said nothing. He suddenly leaned down, grabbed Clara around the waist, and lifted her onto the horse in one smooth move. The men stopped laughing. Clara gasped. "Wait." The cowboy turned the horse toward the narrow mountain trail. "Hold on." A gunshot cracked through the storm. The bullet struck the dirt near the horse's hoof. The horse jumped forward. The cowboy bent low over Clara and pushed the horse up the rocky trail. Branches slapped against them. Rain ran down Clara's face as she held tightly to his coat. "Who are you?" she cried. "Cole." "Why are you helping me?" He looked back at her for only a second. "Because you need help." Another shot echoed behind them. Cole pushed the horse harder. Soon the riders could no longer be seen through the trees. At last, an old wooden cabin appeared on the mountain. Cole jumped down and opened the door. Inside, Clara stumbled in. A small iron stove gave off weak heat. A lantern hung from a wooden beam. A rifle rested beside the door. Cole threw another log into the stove. Clara stood near the wall, breathing hard. "Are they coming here?" Cole looked toward the dark window. "Yes." Her face went pale. He checked his revolver, then looked at her. "But they won't take you." Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. For the first time that night, Clara felt safe, and that frightened her almost as much as the men chasing her. For 3 days, the mountain stayed quiet. Clara helped Cole around the cabin. She carried water from the creek, fed the chickens, and learned how to ride his old brown horse. Slowly, the fear in her eyes began to fade. But every night when Cole was asleep, Clara looked out the window. She was waiting for them. One evening, Cole returned from checking the cattle and found Clara standing beside the fireplace. Her face was pale. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing." Cole looked at her muddy hands. "You're a bad liar." Clara lowered her eyes. From inside her dress, she pulled out a small leather pouch. Cole watched as she opened it. Inside was an old key and a folded paper. "What is that?" "My father's land papers." Cole took the paper and read it beside the lantern. His eyes grew serious. The land was not worthless mountain ground. It stretched across a wide valley where a new road was planned. Whoever owned it could become rich. "Who knows about this?" he asked. Clara swallowed. "The men chasing me." Cole looked toward the window. That explained everything. "They want this land." Clara nodded. "They killed my father." The room became silent. Cole slowly put the paper down. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was afraid you would send me away." Cole looked at her for a long moment. Instead, he walked to the door and checked the lock. "You're staying." Clara's eyes filled with tears. That night, a hard wind struck the cabin. Clara suddenly became weak and fell beside the stove. Cole caught her before she hit the floor. "You're burning up." He carried her to the small bed. Hours passed. He changed the cold cloth on her forehead, added wood to the stove, and never left her side. Near dawn, Clara opened her eyes. Cole was sitting beside her, asleep in a chair. She smiled weakly. Then she heard something outside. A horse. Cole woke at once. He reached for his revolver. Another sound came from the darkness. A boot touched the porch. Then another. Cole stood between Clara and the door. Someone whispered outside. "We know you're in there." Clara stopped breathing. Cole raised his gun. The men had found them. The cabin door shook under a hard kick. Clara jumped from the bed. Cole raised his revolver and stood beside the window. "They found us," he whispered. Another kick hit the door. "You have nowhere to run, girl," a man shouted outside. "Come out and the cowboy lives." Clara looked at Cole. "Please don't open it." Cole gave her a calm look. "I won't." The door burst open. Cole fired first. The shot sent one man falling into the mud. Two others rushed toward the cabin, shooting through the doorway. Glass broke. The lantern fell and the room went dark. Clara dropped behind the table. Cole moved through the darkness, using the walls for cover. A bullet struck his shoulder. He fell against the stove. "Cole." "I'm fine," he said through his teeth. But blood was already running down his arm. A man stepped inside. "Give us the papers." Clara looked at the rifle beside the door. For 1 second, she was too afraid to move. Then she remembered her father. She grabbed the rifle. The man turned. Clara fired. The shot made him fall backward through the doorway. Cole stared at her in shock. "You know how to shoot." "My father taught me." Outside, the last two men shouted and fired again. Cole pushed himself to his feet. "Stay behind me." "No." Clara stood beside him. "This is my fight too." Together, they moved toward the door. Cole fired from one side while Clara fired from the other. The attackers ran toward their horses, but Cole shouted after them. "Never come back." The men disappeared into the dark mountain road. For a few seconds, there was only rain. Then Clara dropped the rifle. She rushed toward Cole. Blood covered his sleeve. "You're hurt." Cole tried to smile. "It's only a scratch." Clara shook her head, tears running down her face. "You could have died because of me." Cole looked at her quietly. "I chose to protect you." "But why?" He had no easy answer. He looked into her eyes and finally spoke. "Because somewhere along the way, you became more than someone I had to save." Clara covered her mouth. Cole reached for her hand. "I thought my heart was dead." Clara held his hand tightly. Maybe it only needed someone to find it. Outside, the storm slowly began to fade. Inside the broken cabin, two lonely hearts finally understood that neither of them wanted to be alone again. Morning came quietly over the mountain. The storm was gone, but the cabin still showed the marks of the fight. One window was broken. The door hung crooked. Empty shells lay on the wooden floor. Cole stood outside, looking toward the valley. Clara walked up beside him. "Are they really gone?" she asked. Cole nodded. "They won't come back." Clara looked at his wounded arm. "You should rest." "I've rested enough." She smiled. For the first time, the mountain did not feel cold. Over the next few weeks, they repaired the cabin together. Clara fixed the torn curtains while Cole repaired the door. She planted small flowers near the porch. He built a strong fence around the ranch. Their days became simple. They worked with the horses. They cared for the cattle. At night, they sat near the fire and shared stories. One evening, Clara found Cole standing alone outside. The sky was full of bright stars. You look sad, she said. Cole slowly shook his head. I'm remembering someone. Clara became quiet. The woman you loved. Yes. He looked down at his hands. I thought I could never love again after losing her. Clara moved closer. Then why did you let me stay? Cole looked into her eyes. Because you made this place feel like a home again. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I was afraid you would send me away. I was afraid you would leave. She smiled through her tears. I'm not leaving. Cole took her hand. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Cole pulled a small silver ring from his pocket. Clara stared at it. I found this in town, he said. It isn't much. She shook her head. It is enough. He placed the ring on her finger. You came to this mountain with nothing, he said softly. Now you have a home. Clara looked at him. And so do you. Months passed and the ranch changed. Laughter filled the cabin. Smoke rose from the chimney each morning. Horses ran across the open land. One evening, Cole watched Clara ride across the valley. He smiled. The lonely cowboy who once believed love had ended forever had finally found it again. Clara rode back toward him and stopped beside the fence. You coming inside? She asked. Cole looked at the warm light glowing through the cabin window. Then he smiled. Always. And together they walked home beneath the wide western sky, no longer afraid of tomorrow.